Good afternoon, buenas tardes, bienvenidos a ¿Qué pasa, mujer? Welcome to ¿Qué pasa, mujer? Estamos aquí todos los domingos a las 4 de la tarde, horario de Nueva York. So we're here every Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and you can watch us here on Pot TV on Roku. You can watch us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and also our YouTube channel. So nos pueden ver aquí todos los domingos a las 4 en este canal Pod TV en Roku, nuestro canal de YouTube, Facebook y también LinkedIn. Hoy estamos celebrando muchas cosas, entonces nos vamos a de una vez a empezar con ICTE. So we're going to go ahead and bring ICTE on since we're celebrating a couple of things today on this Sunday. And we're going to bring Maddie in as well whenever our producer gets ready. Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Buenos días, mujeres.
Buenos días.
Buenos días, buenas tardes en las diferentes zonas. You know, we're seen in all the different zones. So East, West, Colombia, New York, California, Hawaii, you know, we're international. Bienvenida, Mari, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien, buenas tardes, buenos días, Nicte, buenas tardes, Viviana. Doing good. How are you, ladies?
Fantastic.
Bien, todo bien. ¿No collar hoy, Mari?
No collar because I have my shirt, you know, has all these details. So, you know.
So pretty. And your aretes too.
Yeah, they're supposed to match I just realized that you can't really tell, but they have like the same ruffles that my shirt has. So,
yeah. Nice.
Let me see. Like, can you see it right there? So it's like the same ruffly things.
I like it. That's nice. I think Viviana has a little slow internet lag.
Yeah, she's frozen. She's blinking slow. So
I know.
I don't know if I'm frozen.
Yeah, now you're back?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know. My Wi-Fi gets crazy sometimes. But thank you, ladies, for being here. We're celebrating still Hispanic Heritage Month. So I want to know how your week has been. And then also, what have you participated in to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month? Or what are you planning to do to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month? Maddie, you go first.
Of course. No, I had a good week. I went back to, I think I had shared before, I was covering at another branch in another city for a couple of weeks, actually a couple of months. And finally, I'm back at my branch. So it's nice to be back home. So, you know, that was good. It was busy. So busy is always good. As far as celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, we had every year we have, I think I have shared this too, at the bank, we have what we call business resource groups for different categories. We have a women's group, we have a Hispanic group, we have an LGBTQ group, we have an Asian American group. Let's see that I'm veterans group. So there's a bunch of them. So we actually celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month, and we had a call with the CEO of branch banking, which is, you know, like the person that manages, like that oversees all the branches in the bank. So that was really neat. We got to ask him questions and kind of talk a little bit about the influence of the Hispanic communities and the things that the bank is working towards, you know, to kind of benefit the Hispanic community. So that was very nice. That happened at the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month. And then next week, I get to participate in one of the biggest festivals here in Virginia Beach. It's called the Africana Fest. And they're going to be celebrating the diaspora. So I've been invited to be one of the featured guests. And I'm going to be doing my Spanglish poems at Africana Fest in Virginia Beach, October 6th. At 3 o'clock, just in case anybody wants to go.
Awesome. I love it. Me encanta. What about you, Nicte?
It's been a busy week. I feel like it flew by. My husband was in the middle of like some sort of training, so I felt like he was home, but not home. It's one of those things. And oh, he kept waking up at 3 because that's when he had to head out. So I felt like I was up a lot of days, like super early. And then a couple of days ago, we had there's like a tsunami alarm that they sound, or like a danger sound. And so it's like a siren that's like, ooh, like it's really scary. You guys, if you want to hear it, look it up. And there was a miss, like there was something going on with their system, and that alarm kept playing, but it was at 3 in the morning. So I was so exhausted. And then you wake up in the middle of that and you're kind of like, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? So thankfully everyone in the community was kind of saying, oh, this has happened before, and we kind of got through that. So that was kind of part of my week. And then in terms of celebrating Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month, I actually attended on base. They had a panel from people in the service to talk about their experiences as Latinos and Hispanos within the service. And I went because my neighbor, she's in the service and she's Dominican. So it was really nice to kind of hear everyone talk about their different experiences. Some of them, things that they encountered, whether they spoke Spanish or not Spanish, or feeling like they're part of the cultura, not part of the cultura. And it was really interesting because I asked them questions about how, them being in the service, how do they manage their not manage, but how do they connect with their people or celebrate their culture and identity. And it was really interesting to see that perspective, that some people were sharing that they are very proud of who they are and where they come from. But when it comes to them being in the service, they're very also cognizant of making sure they include everyone, so that because they're a collective unit, they don't want to, by celebrating themselves, exclude others, because that's the whole point of us. Not, we want to celebrate ourselves, but not exclude others. So I thought that was very beautiful on how they share that perspective on how for them it's like the mission. They're a team, but they also celebrate their heritage while still finding that nice balance between. So it was really nice. It was very refreshing to hear a different perspective within something that I don't think we hear enough about within like the civilian sector. So that kind of was my week. And then I got a lovely surprise over the weekend. Salud. So
So
this,
today is National Coffee Day.
salud.
Just in case you guys didn't know, we're also celebrating National Coffee Day. Okay. So I didn't realize. So I got the coffee mug because we were celebrating 2 years of our show as well. So it has been that long. Can you believe it?
I can't. It flew by. Salud to that. I think you salud to coffee. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but salud.
Yeah.
Starting today, we do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We could do cheers.
See. Cheers.
And you guys may think we're drinking coffee, but we might be drinking, our drink of choice,
Coffee.
but we're gonna celebrate National Coffee Day. um, Nikte, I
How about
wanted you
you,
to talk a
Juliana?
little
Yeah.
bit about. I'll tell you about my week. So, before I start, so I have been just busy, basketball, work, my mother, my grandmother, so just family stuff. But everybody's healthy and everybody's doing fine. And in reference to my involvement with Hispanic Heritage Month, just educating people about Hispanic Heritage Month. My mother and I got invited to one of the private schools here to talk to their Spanish class. So that was very interesting. And they were talking about how uh, family engagement happens within our community. So, it was myself and my mother. My grandmother couldn't come, but they just wanted to see the different generations and how we interact. Versus in the United States, so that was a topic. And then this particular week, that same school actually had a Hispanic Heritage party or gathering they do every year. So they just had food from different countries. They had music from different countries. So it was just very nice to see that it's happening in schools around the area as well, along with events that are happening in the community. So it's very interesting. I love to see the growth of our community in my area because I get to like see it and touch it and be a part of it. But I just love the growth that I see just in general within our community. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today as well, I wanted to congratulate Nikte because she was highlighted in Forbes website. There was an article. So I want you to tell us a little bit, Nicte. I know the title is Voices of Latina Leadership, 6 Founders on the Art of Perseverance. So I want you to tell us a little bit what that really means and your experience and what was it really like and what does that mean? Because it's not just Nicte and these other 5 ladies being highlighted. You really are representing the Latina female in the United States. So it's not just impactful for you and your household, but for all of us. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thank you. I'm truly honored. I'm very, very excited. And this was an opportunity that came part of Dreamers and Doers. So it's a group for women where we are given opportunities to share our voice, and it can be put through different publications. And this one was on Forbes. So I was super, super excited to hear that they had selected my story. And what it was, it kind of started off as share your perspective on things that you've done to gain leadership within your industry. And so I think because my industry you don't hear a lot of, and there's this misconception of design is just artsy fartsy things. And sometimes, I think I still get triggered with that misconception, but it's also an opportunity to raise awareness about how it isn't necessarily like that. You can be expressive, but it's about providing information and helping shape an emotion towards a brand. So when I was reflecting on my journey to leadership, I think it really made me think of the younger version of me that when I would look at my industry, no habían Latinas leading. And there's barely any that I can count on that are well known, that are within my space or my industry. And instead of, in my young way of thinking, instead of getting upset or complaining about it, or just saying, oh, why are we not seeing Latinas, and I just kind of made this choice. Okay, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to put in my dues, learn, become a sponge. And that was something that I did from very, very early on. And any trabajo, any work that I did, I asked questions, not just about design, but about building the business, things that we didn't learn in college. So I made sure that I was taking advantage of the situations I was in to learn and absorb as much as I could, so that I could one day get to that point where I'm showcasing our perspectives and kind of encouraging, opening the door for other young Latinas to want to pursue that, to want to have their voices seen. And it's been really beautiful because I have seen a lot of younger Latina designers who reached out to me and say, oh my God, it's so great to see a Latina, talking about what you're talking about within our industry. We are not seen. And so for me, it was like I could see my younger self feeling that excitement to see that. So that's been my big drive. And then the other thing that I was talking about was I'm really in from both sides of the family. I've been the only one that started a business with a young child that had special needs. And, with my husband's job, where it was very difficult, he helped me as much as he could. But when the military deployed him and all that stuff, it was just me on my own. I don't have, to me, it's a luxury and a blessing having family nearby to help you raise your children whenever, or you're sick, you have your parents come help you, or someone I've not been lucky to have that anytime or any place where we've been, with the exception when we were in San Antonio, my parents were a little closer. But I had to learn to do a lot of this on my own without any help, no handouts. So I think it's been a nice way to reflect, but also to tell those people who are like the very minimal percent who don't have things handed off to them, who really have to work hard, that it is possible. And you just keep going, keep working hard, échale pa'lante. And really that kind of was the story that I wanted to share when they're asking it's like an open-ended question. And I wanted to share that I've been able to do a lot with the challenges that I've been giving. And especially when, my son was in the NICU, And the month after that, and all the doctor's appointments, people had, what is it, an 8-hour work week or something que tenían, and I had to do that within like 2 hours because that's like whenever he would nap. Or it was very short time that I had to do what other people have for a lot more. So long story short, it was about sharing that story of perseverance and just all these other incredible women too that were featured on there. It's really inspiring to see que no matter what journey we all go through, that there is that common line of working hard, the ethics, and just shining a light on others and empowering others in the process.
That's awesome. Um, so Nicte, so in your realm of design, right? Um, the when you said the women reached out to you, like what was the conversation about in reference to empowering each other? Like, was it a thing of like, hey, let's stick together, or let's like help everybody else? Let us help them know about us, that we exist and that we're here. Like, what are some maybe projects or conversations that came out of these connections that you have made by being almost like a trailblazer, right, in reference
Yeah.
to what you do? Because like I tell some of my students, I have a cousin, she does graphic design, but it's not your typical graphic design, right? She focuses on branding, but she incorporates culture. That's what I say when I describe Nikte, right? And so I give them the examples of how you manipulate, you allow language to be part of your graphic design to teach culture. So you find those words that are what we call cognates that sound similar in Spanish and English, and you utilize them as part of your culture. So you're not only teaching culture to when you do your branding, but you're teaching culture to that corporation that is hiring you to do their design, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about how that makes you feel, and those conversations that you had with those young ladies that felt the lack of support, maybe from media, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. I think it was every time I would hear responses in terms of, thank you so much. I'm so glad that another Latina is, getting featured, or to hear your story and see your work. And it reminds me of that young self. Like I kind of get taken back, like, man, that would be so cool to tell my young self, like, mira, no, just keep going. Because there are times when I doubt myself still. There are times where I'm like, is this going to be worth it? Because when you go through a path that isn't common, that you don't know the answers to all the time, it's tough. But I think you got to follow your instincts and keep going. And what I've been doing with the Latinas as they come and they're like, this is so great, I always tell them, aquí te espero, like I'm waiting for you here at the top, like together we can rise. And it's that continual effect of seguir pa'lante. um, I'm kind of reading Hola mi tía. She's sending some messages, but she was saying, orgullosa de tus raíces. I think that's one of the things that really I've taken to pride desde el momento que I got here when I was 18. And I think it started with color. And that's where I was starting to showcase my culture. And I've encouraged other young Latinas, or even Latinos too. I've had Latinos or Hispanos reach out to me and say that it's really exciting to see that. I'm like, and I encourage them, keep sharing your work, keep sharing what makes you whole, and those passion projects, whether they're from clients or your own passion projects, keep sharing that, because there's so many of us that were used to being calladitos or not saying anything. And this is a way of us raising awareness, but also bringing connection, because I think that's one of the things that, Viviana, how you were saying, sharing culture, one of the intentions that I've had is that I want to have people feel connected and welcome like we do within nuestra propia cultura, and not separate them or not make them feel that they don't belong, because we know what it feels like to be on the other side. So my purpose has always been about inclusion and celebrating how we are all unique, and always telling young designers to not give up. Que aquí te espero, together we can rise. And it's that notion of like, there's more than enough work for all of us, and more than enough space for all of us to share a seat at the table.
Very good. I love it. Um, I had sent you ladies. I love everything that you said, by the way, Nikte, because I think it's about building relationships with people, and because we always use the word like networking and all this stuff, but it's really what Maddie says all the time is educating ourselves, and we can educate other people or educate myself through making connections, like meeting new people and like really building that bond because sometimes people will start to almost forget that you look the way that you look, even though I may be of a different culture, but it's because we have built a connection and we have truly like that is the true definition of networking, right? To have that relationship that we have. And I just think it's awesome that you're able to impact and you really I know we talk about our age all the time, but you're really in your prime and this is just the beginning, and you've been making impact for a long time. It's just is really starting to highlight, and I think it's because we're genuine about the work that we do, and it just like naturally comes as like, hey, I'm going to start a graphic design business so I could be featured on Forbes one day. That was never the thought, so it's just things that we do from heart. Like I know we experience every single week with Maddie and her poems, and like I will always tell you the first time. I still remember to this day the first time that I heard Maddie and her poem, and the first time it was a bilingual poem that I heard, and it wasn't even it was not a Hispanic event or anything like that. It was at a like a local coffee shop slash restaurant, deli, whatever it was. And I was like, oh my God, like I feel chills all over my body. And I want you to talk a little bit about your passion, Maddie, because every time that you do this work, it's almost like being Latina, right? I can see somebody, oh, she's a teacher, she's a doctor. But then once I find out that they're Hispanic, I'm like, oh my God, like I get extra excited. So it's that same thing with like Maddie and her poetry and her other gifts. Even within your financial industry, Maddie, I'm sure people go up to you, but then they see the last name Garcia. They're like, oh my God, I'm going over there, because somebody speaks Spanish over there. So tell me a little bit about like how it makes you feel that you impact so many people because you're Latina.
I think, the funny thing is that when you do something out of passion, you don't do it to like go out and impress anybody. You do it because it feels good. You do it because it feels a void in you. It kind of empowers you. So that's what I always say about my poetry. It's like I write for me. I write to make myself feel better. I write my truth. I write what I believe. I write what I feel. And I believe it. Because I think that if I would be writing somebody else's story or saying somebody else's issues or problems, probably it wouldn't come across as sincere as it does when I say my words. So they're my words. So I go out to speak my truth and talk about me. And then what I have learned is that the more that I do that, the more people relate to that, the more people gravitate towards you. One, because of the honesty, and two, because we always think that we are the only ones going through a situation when in reality there's an entire world out there. And it's just a way of us connecting. So same thing within the financial world. It's like I'm a big, every time at work, even at work, every time policies change or something changes and I learn something new, the first thing that I do is go to my coworkers and be like, I just learned this. Do you know that? And do you know that? Because it's important, one, that we all know the same information, because, we're all supposed to be doing the same thing. But it is important, too, that we are up to date. So every time I learn something new, it's important for me that my team knows what I just learned. So in case they didn't know, now they know it, too. So it's the same thing when you go out there and you try to help people. Sometimes, people will tell you, oh, I knew that. But 90% of the time, people will tell you, I didn't know that. So, you do it for that 90% that didn't know.
Yeah, I love it. I just think that it's so exciting for me to be Latina. Like I don't know where that came from, but I just have it in me and I just feel proud of it because I know some people shy away from it or they might not want to, let people know that they're Hispanic or Latino. And I just think that I don't know if it's something that is just given to you in your foundation through your family. That's a piece of it, and there's no like embarrassment of that we speak Spanish. It's like I truly feel like it's just in part of my essence, and I just love to share it with other people. Like somebody came up to me, I guess I didn't speak to them when I was at the game yesterday. So the lady comes up to me and she was like, hey, like I know in Puerto Rico they speak to people, right? I was like, well, I'm not Puerto Rican, first of all. And second of all, it's Hispanic Heritage Month, so you need to be nice to me. So I make sure that I remind everyone that it is Hispanic Heritage Month. And it used to be celebrated for like a week, or was it a day at first, Maddie?
It started as a day, and then it started as a week, and then they made it a whole month.
Yeah, so now it's a whole month. So if you can see like the growth that we've had, and I just think it's amazing. And of course, that we because I gotta say my $3.2 trillion contribution that we make to the economy, and I'm sure that number has increased because I've been saying it for a long time. I think it's been a year already since I've been saying that amount. So that amount has really grown. 3.4, Nick? Oh, 3.4. I've been saying the wrong number, or was it 3.2 before?
It was 3.2, and then the Hispanic Star released the number, and it said 3.2. I mean 3.4,
Okay,
pardon. Yeah, 3.4. And then
3.4, right. So
there's like
3.4.
another 3.6 data point that's like an estimated GDP. But yeah, 3.4.
Yes. So that's our new number, guys. $3.4 trillion that we contribute to the economy as Hispanics in the United States, and that's not really counting all the money because there's always a percentage of money that's not in those equations. There was a video that I shared with the ladies this morning. I think it was a TikTok or Instagram, but it was a gentleman just kind of showing how his life was in 1997, and it was just like in black and white, and it kind of showed him like walking through probably the border, and with fears, having to learn a new language, a new culture, maybe no money, just all of those fears that happen whether you come here on an airplane, through the border, on land, river, body of water, whatever. All those fears are still the same, right? And then now he's like 2024. He has his own house, his own business. His child is in school. So all of those things that reek of prosperity, right? Which is what we want. And I just think it's amazing how we have the perseverance, endurance to kind of stick through. Like I see my son play basketball all the time, and I see, they do basketball drills and the 3-on-3, 4-on-4, whatever. And you see some kids that they just kind of fight through. You see some kids that kind of like give up a little bit, but there's some kids that really fight through. It doesn't matter if the other kid is taller, like they still push on him. They find some way to manipulate their body to push that guy out the way. And I think that is a very significant of our culture, because that's what we've been taught. So Maddie, I want you to tell me a little bit about how you have taught your kids that push, in reference to who they are as people.
First, before I get into your question, I just kind of want to piggyback on what you were saying. I think there has been this big shift when it comes to this generation, and being different. I think before, being different was seen as a negative. And again, we talk about it all the time. It was all about assimilation. And then now it's like there's such a pride in being, who we are, our culture, our background, our roots. There's just something to be said. And whether you speak Spanish, whether you are immersed in the culture, just having like, it's kind of like that little one drop, made you non-white, but it made you something else. Now that little one drop, it's a source of pride instead of something else. So I think, that's where, like that pride, it's coming from. And, we have to be realistic. Our community, our society is becoming more and more mixed. And, very soon there's going to be no pure nothing. We're going to be a little bit of everything. So, I think, one thing that I have learned with kids, it's with having kids and raising kids, is that a lot of the time, 99% of the time, it's not what you tell them, but it's what you show them. And it's like if they see it in you, it's like it's there. Sometimes I hear my daughter say things that I'm like, where did she get that from? And I'm like, oh, I be saying that all the time, or she read it in one of my posts, or she heard it in one of my poems, like I remember the first time that I opened her Instagram, when I friended her on Instagram, and she said something about my mother says, and she quoted one of my poems, and it was like, okay, so she's listening, and since she was little, she used to say, I'm Dominican, and, I'm Afro Latina, and like all these things, that I would not expect her necessarily to say, because she was raised here in the States, So I think it's more showing them, who we are, to be proud of who they are. With my boys, they never really learned to speak Spanish. It was, again, because of all the issues that they had when they were little, physical therapy, speech therapy, and all these things. We always had to enforce the English part of it. And even though we spoke Spanish to them, they would always respond in English. So Spanish was never, like big for them. Like my daughter could have a whole conversation in Spanish, but my boys don't necessarily, are not necessarily the same. But as they've gotten older, it's something that they have taken it up on themselves, because they do hear us speak Spanish. They do hear us, like sometimes we play music in the car. Like if you ride my husband's car, it's only merengue, salsa, bolero, bachata. Like you don't hear nothing in English. You get in my car, you might hear a little bit of everything. In his car, no, you're listening to perico ripiao, not even merengue, perico ripiao, like very country stuff. And it's like, okay, the kids are going to be bored. And sometimes I hear my sons singing, and I'm like, how do you know that song? But again, it's because, they know. Same thing with food, they eat whatever out there. Like now that my son is in, it's out in Tennessee, all he eats is American food or whatever they feed him in school, and then he comes home and he's like, Mom, I want arroz, I want pollo, I want pollo guisado, I want pico de gallo, I want, he starts asking me for all these things. And I'm like, okay, what happened to pancakes and eggs? Like that's what you used to ask me before. No, he wants traditional food. But again, it's because that's what they see. So I think it's more, kids learn more from what they see in us. They see the fight, they see the struggle, and I think one of the things too, it like teaching the next generation, it's hard because we always try to provide to our kids more than what we had, so they don't necessarily see the struggles that we went through or the struggles that our parents went through. They only get the stories, so it's always a little bit harder to be able to teach them the value of where they're at versus where they came from. But again, 99% of it is what we show them more than what we tell them.
That's true. What about for you, Nick? Because I know your son is younger, and we've had these conversations before, but he's getting a little bit. How old is he now?
7, 7.
Wow.
Oh, I know. He is like up to here on me now. I mean, I'm not that tall, granted. It won't take
Yeah.
long for him to pass
Yeah.
me, but we were like, my husband and I were the other day, I'm like, what happened? He's like so tall now. So, and of course he loves it. But I think one of the things that I've been trying to do, one of the challenges that he has asked me when we were in Texas, that's where he was born, San Antonio. He went to a school that the teacher spoke Spanish as well, so they had a little bit of Spanish, and it was great. Then we moved to Las Vegas, and while there was a Hispanic and Latino community there, they didn't speak Spanish in school. So, and his first pre-K teacher did interject a little bit, but we were there for, like, he was with her for a few months, so not enough to continue the entire year. And then after that, he asked me, well, why are we not speaking Spanish in the school? Why do they only say in Inglés or in English? And so I would tell him, like, papi, is that not everybody speaks Spanish, but like my husband and I tell him, you're special. You speak Spanish. You understand Spanish. So we try to kind of encourage that. And so it's the challenge that I've encountered with him being so young is that because the school doesn't necessarily have Spanish within their curriculum, and at least the ones that we've been to now, that he doesn't get that constant conversation. Now we have made some friends now that are also Latinos, and like they also speak Spanish to their kids, and their kids start to speak to him in Spanish. So that to me, I think, is where more of that influence comes from, children around his age speaking Spanish, kind of seeing that, because it is like that peer connection. So that's kind of what we've been doing. And I've been trying to be very adamant about having moments when I talk to him, whether it's in the morning that I only talk to him in Spanish, or like being a little bit more intentional about that and having those conversations, because he'll understand. He says, "Oh, sí," in English. "Oh, mami, that in español means," or like I tell him, "Ponte crema en los brazos." "Oh, yeah, in English that means put cream on your bras, on your arms." So like he already starts to do that translation, and constantly trying to help him embrace that, and then playing music for him. The other day we were going somewhere, and I was playing una canción and he was singing it, and I was like, "Yeah, papito, muy bien, muy bien." He's like, "Yeah, that's in español." So really kind of celebrating those moments when I see that he shows that pride and that connection, because I think that that's necessary for him to embrace that even more, where like his constant isn't Spanish all the time. Because even if we spoke Spanish, because I remember my brother and I, we were, even though we were raised in Venezuela, we were lucky enough to go to an English speaking school. And I remember my mom and dad always spoke in Spanish. My mama was there all the time, always Spanish at home. But my brother and I, as we started learning English, we gravitated towards that preference. Hablar inglés. And mi mamá would be like, en español, en la casa en español. And so I recall some of those things, and I think it's just when you see your peers speaking that language, you're kind of more encouraged to do so. So trying to find more friendships that have their kiddos that are also speaking Spanish, that are on his age group, so that he's exposed to more of that within his age group. So that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of how we've been embracing that, and of course con la comida too. But I think it's more of that language, embracing that celebration too. And then sometimes I tell him, say, "Di, yo soy Latino," just, to have him say that. And he says it. I'm like, "Duro, yo soy Latino." And it's just like those little encouragement things. I do have to say, piggybacking back on a couple conversations that you both were having about the younger generations and kind of speaking up, or things that they don't know we've encountered that, they may not. What I love about the younger generation, it's more like the Gen Z, is that they are a lot more vocal about things. And there's that two-sided thing. But in terms of culture and embracing your heritage, for me, I feel that because they were more vocal, it allowed us younger, older, a whole different generations to celebrate our culture, when some of us were taught to be like, no, calladito, so that you can blend in and not stand out. And now it's more like, no, it's not. It's like kind of liberating to celebrate your heritage. So I love that. I feel they kind of pushed more of that celebration, and then it kind of has just been like this nice positive domino effect of people celebrating who we are. And and one thing, I don't know how you ladies feel about this. I know we've had this conversation, but one of the things that I've noticed is that within our comunidad, there's division of, well, we're all not all Mexican. I know I am Mexican, I'm mixed. But I think that there's that notion of like, oh, everyone thinks that you're Mexican. And so people who aren't feel that they're excluded. But one of the things that I would love for us to embrace, because in that conversation, that panel that I went to, I heard that a couple of times, and it's no one's fault within our community that there's those labels put on us. So that sometimes frustration is projected towards our own people, when, like if we say like, well, I'm not Mexican like you, like, because I've heard those conversations. And instead of us saying that it's not our own people who put those labels, it's other people who put those labels. So instead of saying that, I think we should embrace more like, hey, I'm from here, but we also have people from here and from here. And did you know that like the in Dominican Republic, you say unchin for like a little bit because I've been learning from my neighbor. Like you start to share the things that you've been learning from other cultures, other heritage within our giant beautiful community, that you start helping raise that awareness. So instead of us saying, "Oh, I'm not from here," don't be biased or don't, that's an opportunity for us to shape, like, yes, there are many people that are from Mexico, but I happen to be from Dominican Republic or Colombia. Like I'm part Colombia. I always say, well, when they ask me where I'm from, I say my whole story because it's an opportunity to share that we are from everywhere. From, and Viviana, you were saying we're starting to become more and more mixed. So that's something that I think that we can't allow labels to separate us. Let's just celebrate each other and say, yes, there's people from here, but there's also people from here, 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 and share a powerful story from that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because division does exist, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that the more that we mix ourselves, the more that we get ourselves educated. Because even like the whole term of Hispanic, Latino, Spanish, like all even that, right? So like well defining those terms, but if I don't know what those terms mean,
Mm-hmm.
then I can't educate myself, and then I can't educate my children, and I can't
Mm-hmm.
educate my coworkers. So I think it starts at home, where I have to educate myself. Like I've seen a little bit more on social media, teachers teaching their classroom, they recorded the difference between Latino, Hispanic, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like Nicte, the last, I think 2 weeks ago, she mentioned how we got to make sure we include Brazil and just say Hispanic, Latino, right? So I started to use that. So I just don't use Latino anymore by itself. I use both words, right? And I got that from Nicte, from having a conversation with her, for her to school me a little bit. So I think it's that piece, right? To get educated ourselves, to understand our culture, and then also to know that, hey, even though it's like saying, New York, you're from New York, you're from Georgia, like you're still from the United States, right? So it's kind of like bringing that a unity together to say, hey, I'm Hispanic or Latino, right? Not necessarily like I'm Colombian also, because I'm Colombian, I'm going to be on this group over here. And so I think it's a little bit unique just because we're in the United States, right? Um, I don't really know how the dynamics are in other countries, like let's say Colombia, and then there's people from Ecuador. I don't know how they're treated because I've never lived over there in an environment like that. But I know that being here, when I was in New Jersey, I didn't see the division, but I see the division here where I live now. So over there is like everybody spoke Spanish is the norm, and we embraced the differences and we welcomed the food and the different sayings and the lingo from different countries. And I think a lot of the times it just has to do from lack of educating ourselves, because it's almost like I have these conversations with Black people, right? And I'm like, Blacks and Latinos were so similar, right? Even if you just look at family pictures, if you were to get rid of that body of water between Africa and what we call today South America, it fits right in, right? So, and I tell people all the time about a documentary called Black in Latin America that's on YouTube that ran on PBS. So, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the times because of lack of educating myself, then I can't tell you, or I don't know that Colombians and Mexicans and Dominicans will, if you really dig in, we come from the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think it's that, because it's just lack of knowledge. Like there's a book called Open Veins of Latin America, so it talks about the history of how we got here and the things that have happened to us. So all of those things, but and that's one thing that I love about social media is that maybe for those of us that are not readers, we can kind of look up Open Veins of Latin America on TikTok, and something will come up that will semi-educate us on it. Or platforms like this one with Que Pasa Mujer, where we can have these conversations, or like Nicte with you, Maddie, with your poetry, how we can use our gift to educate people. And I just think that that's big time, and that's where the division comes from because of lack of knowledge.
I agree. I agree. Like with me being Dominican, every time, that somebody asks me or sees me, they're like, "Oh, so you're Puerto Rican?" Because it's like Mexican and Puerto Ricans is like the most well-known cultures because Puerto Rico is part of the United States. So it's like, oh, so you're Puerto Rican. And before it was like, no, I'm not Puerto Rican. Of course, that was kind of like the reaction. And there's this thing about, Puerto Ricans hating to be called Dominicans and Dominicans hating to be called Puerto Ricans. So I think, it's up to us to be able to change that narrative. And like Nick said, instead of saying, oh no, I'm not Puerto Rican, I always like now I catch myself saying all the time, it's like, there's nothing wrong with being Puerto Rican. There are neighbors, but I'm not Puerto Rican, I'm Dominican. So it's like it's not so much the hard stop, like, no, I'm not Puerto Rican. no, I love Puerto Rico, and but I'm Dominican. So making that correction. So I think it has to start with us. And like you said, educating ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. So, Nikte, by you being in Hawaii, and I know you have found your circle of Hispanic people, but when you interact with people that are not Hispanic, what is the culture like in Hawaii? And maybe if you could think about the people outside of the military base, because usually with military people, they tend to embrace the diversity. But with the natives of the island, how has your interaction been? Because you could look like, if you get rid of some stuff, you could look Hawaiian, I'm sure. So they would embrace you. But tell me, how do they receive you in the island, not the military people?
It's funny that you mentioned that. I have one of my friends that she is from here. Her family's from here. She was born, raised here. And when I was telling her that we were coming here, she's like, "Oh, don't worry, you'll fit in. Like you'll just the way that you look, you'll fit in." And so, from what I have experienced, for me it's like a very about celebrating culture and your heritage, and there's so much connectivity to the Hawaiian culture, to how we are as Latinos, that I see that celebration, that family nucleus, you sticking together with your family, celebrating your heritage. So for me, I think that people can tell when I'm genuinely excited to be around that and learn from that. And we've talked about this, like people love that when you genuinely want to embrace and celebrate. So I've felt welcome. I want to start to go to more events. I know that there's more events coming now that I finally feel more settled in, so that I can experience more of the culture and just embracing that. And one of the things that you have to, Viviana, about like the military community being more embracing, it's not really as embracing as I would love. I think it's just we find our own little groups. And there are people that I've connected with that I could totally tell that they're not a fan of like how I just present myself, and I don't care, because I'm not hurting their feelings. I'm being respectful. But I can tell when people don't. They're short with their conversations, and then they gravitate towards other people's, and that's totally fine. But I have found some people that are, open, accept me who they are. Like it's cada quien, cada tipo de persona con cada quien. I don't know how you say it in English. It's kind of like to each their own. That's it.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that generally within Hawaii, there's a lot of em- anyone who loves to embrace culture, who is respectful, who just really wants to connect. You feel, I don't know how to put it, but you feel this really great sense of connection to the place, the earth. I keep hearing that the island provides when you give, and there's like this, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel it that you respect the surroundings, your environment, the people, the culture, and it's really, really beautiful. It feels welcoming. It feels like it becomes home in that sense. So I I do love that, and I love that the Hawaiian community has been very adamant about keeping their roots and not letting their roots be lost. And I know sometimes there is a bit of a friction within kind of like the history of when people immigrated here, or where the US came over here, like, and then this became like a territory, and then it became a state, like it became that history part. It's connected somehow to how our history was, where we felt like we were torn apart from our history. So I think that there's that respect that I keep very mindful of. And I think it's just something that we can all learn from, even people who have been in the mainland, what they call like the main states, all their lives, and they come here. There's a lot of people that are very aware of respecting the culture and not learning how to pronounce certain words. Um, like a lot of the highways here are labeled within like Hawaiian terms, which is really cool. There's this street or something, it's spelled like like, but we learned that it's like like how they pronounce it, not like. So it's being very aware of not mispronouncing things and saying how it is to respect the culture. And I think those are things that kind of open the door to being embraced by the land, by the people. And I don't know, it's just been very beautiful to embrace it. And I think that it makes me want to do more of that, so that I can feel more apart and learn, like we've been talking, educate myself, so then I can share that, like, hey, look what I'm learning from being here. You guys need to
Mhm.
come and learn, and be a part of that, to share that excitement. So
Yeah, and I think that that's like right up your alley, because I know when you were in Venezuela and you were going to the English speaking school, you had friends from all of different countries. So you blend right in with other cultures. So that's not going to be a problem. But that it's nice for you to go through that, so then you can share those experiences with us here as well. But before we go on, I just wanted to acknowledge some of our audience. Some people acknowledged us on our YouTube account. And Lily Matos, she said, las mujeres increíbles siempre están en la batalla para seguir adelante, y bilingüe es un plus, orgullosas de sus raíces. Y Nikauri Jackson dijo, exactly, they do what they do, when we were talking about our children doing what they see, not necessarily what we tell them to do. And that is so true. Of course, that's so true. So true. So our time is almost up. So we're going to go ahead and have Maddie do her poem. And as you guys know, we're giving honor to other poetas.
Poets.
Poets.
Yes.
Poets. So that was a bilingual brain thing that I just had. You guys saw it live, which it happens all the time. But we're ready for you, Maddie.
Yes. So today I wanted to honor Nikte as well, because we're celebrating her accomplishments. We're so proud of you. But I think, and the reason why I bring that up is because this poem is about the poet's name. So the poet that I am celebrating today, her name is Jessica Salgado, but her name is spelled Yesika. So it's not Jessica like we're used to hearing, it's Jessica. So so yeah, so she always makes it a point that people know how to pronounce her name. And I know, Nick, you probably faced that all your life. Every time people saw your name on paper, they're like, how am I going to pronounce this one? So I was like, Nick, that can relate to this one. So this is in honor of your name and us being proud of who we are, and showing people that we like ourselves so that they can like us too, because I think that has a lot to do with it as well. So Jessica Salgado is an Ecuadorian, Salvadorian poet as well. So if you don't know her, Google her. She is amazing. She is a high school dropout, and she became the most amazing writer. Her books are in schools. She is in California right now, and yeah, she is just amazing, amazing role model. So this is called My Name by Jessica Salgado. I find myself correcting my mother's English, trying to iron mommy out of my tongue and hair, wishing Lorelai Gilmer was my mother. I make a speech on how to properly pronounce my name to my class. Afterwards, a boy comes up and tells me, I'm just going to call you what I can. I say sorry. My name is now a full-blown apology. The loathing wraps around my neck like a thick scarf in a hot room. I learned to associate being brown with suffocation, whiteness with desire, an American brown girl with two languages growing inside her. How does your name fit into a world that doesn't call you what your father used to call you? Mi corazón, mi amor, mi vida. You wonder, what is a name if it isn't a dull knife carving your home into you? Most days, I don't even correct people when they mispronounce my name. I always think that their tongues are in the same place as their heart. I get accused of being too complicated when I ask for someone to say my whole name, every syllable of it, as if I should apologize for the work that it takes. But why? When my name was the only thing that was given to me without the expectation of something in return. If we can't go into every conversation demanding to speak Spanish, then we can go in demanding that our names sound like the language we first learned to love.
Thank you, Maddie. As
Oh, wow.
always, amazing. I
Yeah,
love
that
it.
was super powerful. Thank you. Gracias, Mari.
Wow, you're welcome. You're welcome. We
I
love
wrote it
you.
in the chat, but I'm gonna say it. So my son walks in from basketball and like go take a shower, right? So we could go out to eat. And he said, "Hold on, let me sit down and listen to the poem first."
Love that.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope you guys have an amazing week. Continue to celebrate our 2 years being with Mark and with Pot TV. Nicauri said bravo por el poema. Yeah. So we're celebrating our 2 years of doing our show and Hispanic Heritage Month. So 2 years ago on Hispanic Heritage Month, we started. So I just want you guys to continue to celebrate and use our mug for coffee, milk, or any type
Fermented
of
juice.
Vino.
all of that.
Fermented juice.
Yes.
Mommy juice.
All of that. All of that. So we will see you guys next week at 4:00 once again.
Yes.
Thank you,
Gracias. Adios. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark. Ciao, mujeres.
Ciao.
Whether you're a seasoned designer, dabbler, or just starting out, this course is for you.
If you're watching this with your friends, you'll probably make a joke.
Because you know what you feel on the inside
isn't what you want people to know.
If you have to pretend to be happy,
find someone you trust and tell them.
If you get mad at things and you don't know why, or have thoughts about hurting yourself,
find someone you trust and tell them.
You are never alone when you share.
Seriously, people care about you.
It's okay to not understand what you're feeling.
And it's easy to think that you're all alone.
But you don't have to be.
You're never alone when you share.
Don't be ashamed to tell someone you trust what you're feeling.
You're not alone.
You are not alone.
Find someone you trust and tell them.
Tell a parent.
Tell a teacher. Tell a brother or sister.
Or just tell a friend.
You haven't done anything wrong.
Talk to someone.
Talk to someone.
It's how things get better.
Are just so impressed with them. Like I said, we've been with them for years. I will recommend and refer anyone to them. We stand by A+ academics. They're the best.
A+ tutorial really did help me with all my grades. They all went up when I came to this place. And I would say I recommend this school to everyone.
So it's a really good environment to be in, especially for me because it makes me look up to my parents.
If you have students that need academic help,
A+ Academics is the place to be. A+ Academics, what a great place to go for academics.
It's just a really great place to learn.